Regiments of Krieg. Welcome, gentle listener, I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and formations of the Warhammer 40k setting. The grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. If you wish to see the channel flourish and possibly take on bigger topics and get better resources, then like and subscribe. But also consider joining our Patreon or throwing a one-off tip in the form of super thanks if I have indeed earned your bounty. And today we explore the details about a fan-favourite regiment found in the pages of White Dwarf 509. Hence it is hot off the press. A look at the organisation of a Krieg regiment and the history of one of its most lauded. And so, as usual, to quote: The Regiments of Krieg. Of the countless regiments that comprise the sprawling Astra Militarum, there are few as renowned as the Death Korp of Krieg. Hailing from a nightmarish death world that bears the scars of millennia of warfare, the soldiers of Krieg are amongst the most resilient and fanatical in all the armies of the Imperium. The culture of Krieg is heavily informed by the planet's tragic past. Millennia ago, the world was riven by wars between the planet's secessionist noble elite and elements of the world's military who remained loyal to the Imperium. These civil conflicts lasted for many hundreds of years and resulted in the planet's surface being turned into a radioactive wasteland. The Loyalists, after much suffering, eventually emerged victorious. The people of Krieg have felt a lasting shame ever since, and they possess a burning desire to atone for the treachery of their forebears. This desire has, over time, morphed into a cult of sacrifice, a mindset that now permeates every aspect of the world's culture, most notably the manner in which its armies are constituted and the strategies that its battlefield commanders employ. Krieg doctrine teaches that any battle in which the Death Korp's capacity to wage war and willingness to sacrifice lives outweighs that of their foes is a battle already won. This attitude, and the deeply ingrained readiness to suffer and die in the name of Krieg and the Emperor, often leads the Death Korp to become embroiled in horrifyingly attritional warfare. All citizens of Krieg are expected to further the Imperium's endless war effort. The wounded, the infirm, and others judged incapable of serving on the front lines spend their entire lives contributing through other means, usually by the way of production of arms, armor, and ammunition. Those capable of fighting are drilled in the arts of war from early childhood. So indoctrinated are they that their entire identity is subsumed by this culture, and save for officers, names are rarely used. The rank and file are ordinarily referred to only by the unique identifying number assigned to each Krieg citizen at birth. A soldier's garb. The soldiers of the Death Korp can be readily identified by the manner in which their warriors are garbed and armoured, though some officers may opt to wear service dress caps to signify their seniority. The majority of Death Korp soldiers, regardless of rank, go to battle clad in the standard issue Mark 11 plasteel helmet. This helmet contains an adjustable cradle that fits around the head of the wearer and contains attachment points that allow for the fitting of the enviro-sealed chem masks the Death Korp are famed for. These masks attach to chest-worn respirator units that further enhance the wearer's capacity to fight in even the most horrific of battlefield conditions. The elite veterans of the Death Korp and those who have served in these units are known to daub skulls on their masks. These death heads signify a soldier's acceptance that their death is inevitable, and they will not falter when it arrives. Officers' helmets or caps may feature marks and insignia as befit their seniority. Articulated plasteel pauldrons provide additional protection to the shoulders, and are also used to display regimental allegiance and rank insignia. Perhaps the most distinctive item of clothing worn by the Death Korp is their great coat. Manufactured on Krieg from hard-wearing fabrics, this item of clothing is completely waterproof, well insulated, and chemically impregnated to provide additional protection against environmental hazards. Great coats are produced in a variety of hues, including dark green, blue, grey, and black. Some regiments are known to wear specific colours of greatcoat. Others alter the hues of their attire depending upon the forces they fight alongside, or to more closely match the surroundings in which they will be required to fight. Regimental patches are stitched to the greatcoat's collar. Additional iconography may be sewn into soldiers' coats, often in the form of geometric shapes intended to facilitate the swift identification of various regiments within a combat zone. The Death Korps do not issue commendations, honorifics, or medals of their own, for heroism and self-sacrifice are expected. Some higher-ranking officers may bear decorations bestowed upon them by the wider Astra Militarum, albeit generally only as a diplomatic concession. Death Korps regiments. Krieg doctrine has a great deal of influence over the type of regiments the planet raises. Whilst infantry, artillery, and armour regiments are commonly formed to fulfill the world's tithes, Krieg reconnaissance, drop regiments, and other special formations are conspicuous by their absence. Krieg is famed, however, for its siege regiments. These combine artillery, infantry, armour, and cavalry into a single fighting force capable of prosecuting lengthy and attritional campaigns in both offensive and defensive capacities. The composition of a siege regiment is rarely uniform, but the majority are based around a solid core of committed infantry and skilled artillery crew. Siege regiments ordinarily consist of several divisions, and each division contains a number of companies. Some siege regiments are formed prior to deployment, others are assembled in the field from the remnants of depleted regiments or to fulfill a tactical need. Line Corps. On occasion, multiple Krieg regiments may be combined together into a single entity known as a line corps. These sprawling formations are most often fielded in war zones where Death Korps regiments comprise the bulk or entirety of an Astra Militarum force. When combined together, several armed corps may form a siege army. Line corps that form part of a siege army may be moulded with specific battlefield functions in mind. One that is formed predominantly of infantry or armoured regiments, for example, is referred to as an assault corps, and it will be tasked with leading attacks and forcing breakthroughs. One that contains large numbers of siege and artillery regiments will be designated as a bombardment corps and be used to hold defences, dig trenches, and use its prodigious firepower to support offensives and undertake other forms of static warfare. Constant attrition ensures that the size and structure of Krieg regiments varies greatly. The majority, however, are formed of at least 4 battalions. These battalions are in turn composed of a number of companies, which are each further subdivided into platoons, batteries, or squadrons, depending on the nature of the company in question. Regimental Command. Krieg regiments are usually commanded by a colonel, ably supported by regimental headquarters consisting of the regiment's most experienced veterans and an array of adjutants, subalterns, and regimental advisors. The regiment's standard bearers also form part of the colonel's retinue. It is at regimental level that crucial assets such as the Krieg Engineer Corps, Adeptus Mechanicus Tech Priests, Adeptus Ministorum delegations, and Navis Imperialis officers are mustered and deployed as and where required. Battalion and Company Command. Battalions are almost always commanded by lieutenant colonels, with companies falling under the command of a captain or major. Given their frontline role, both battalion and company command headquarters are usually aided by command vehicles, additional heavy weapons platoons, officio prefectus staff, and Navis Imperialis liaisons. In addition, adjutants, Voxnet specialists, and intelligence officers are also employed to facilitate close contact with Allied troops and commanders, and to stay appraised of enemy movements. It is not uncommon, particularly in siege regiments, for regimental command to distribute specialist assets such as elite grenadiers and combat engineers amongst their infantry companies. Platoon command. Platoons are commanded by lieutenants. Traditionally, this lowest rank of commissioned officer has experienced the highest casualty rate in Krieg regiments. It is they to whom the soldiers look for inspiration to lead assaults and to provide leadership. Infantry platoon commanders are aided by Voxnet specialists, cadres of veterans, and accompanying heavy weapons squads. Some may be furnished with armoured command vehicles, though this is less common in Death Korps regiments than in those mustered on many other worlds. Tank and Death Rider squadrons are provided with a banner, which is usually affixed to a command vehicle or borne to battle by a veteran rider. Infantry companies. Death Korps infantry companies do not deviate much from established Astra Militarum norms. Company command is often supplemented by squads of engineers and grenadiers, who may act as a personal guard or be fielded as elite infantry should the battle demand. Most infantry companies contain between 5 and 10 platoons of infantry, each of which is led by a lieutenant and contains 6 squads of infantry. Resources permitting, infantry companies may contain a number of fire support squads. These small units are outfitted with mortars, las cannons, heavy stubbers, and other heavier ordnance with which to support their comrades. Tank companies. Death Korps tank companies are often relatively small and fewer in number compared to many of their counterparts in other regimentos. The typical Death Korps armoured company is led by an officer with the rank of at least major and consists of between 3 and 8 squadrons. Tank squadrons are made up of 3 tanks of varying patterns. As with most Astra Militarum regiments, Lehman Russ tanks are the most common variety, though other, scarcer patterns, notably Malkador and Rogel Dawn pattern tanks, have been fielded by Death Korps regiments in various war zones. Super heavy tanks are scarce in Krieg regiments, with such assets generally being attached at battalion level. Artillery companies. Forming a crucial element of any siege regiment, artillery companies contain the bulk of the regiment's firepower. Death Korps artillery companies are usually fully mechanized, containing a combination of self-propelled artillery pieces and vehicle-drawn emplaced weapons. Artillery company headquarters are ordinarily equipped with specialist communication vehicles, alongside recovery vehicles and ammunition carriers. Each company contains between 3 and 6 batteries, each of which usually consists of 4 pieces of ordnance. Given the slow-moving nature of the majority of Death Korps campaigns, Krieg artillery regiments favor larger, heavier, and more potent guns, which require several guardsmen to operate. The largest artillery pieces fielded by the Death Korps require a crew of up to 6 in order to operate at peak efficiency. Death Rider companies. The Death Korps' cavalry companies perform a variety of roles and are an essential component of Krieg's infantry, armoured, and siege regiments. Given the scarcity of armoured reconnaissance vehicles and sentinel walkers amongst Death Korps regiments, it is the Death Riders who undertake this duty in most Krieg armies. These elite cavalry formations are also capable of attacking as shock troops during breakouts and breakthroughs. Death Rider companies usually consist of a command squadron and up to 6 additional squadrons, each containing 10 soldiers led by a ride master, the Death Rider's equivalent of a sergeant. Additional company assets. All companies, regardless of their speciality, require support assets in order to function at peak efficiency. Siege regiments in particular are known to deploy with large numbers of combat engineers drawn from Krieg's Engineer Corps. These soldiers are well versed in preparing defensive positions, undermining enemy fortifications, placing explosives and minesweeping, vehicle recovery, and various other battlefield operations. Siege regiments typically deploy with several detachments of combat engineers. These specialists are distributed throughout the regiment's companies as and where their expertise is required. Abhuman auxiliaries have been known to be attached to Death Korps forces. Ogrins are favoured by the Death Korps for their belligerence and reliability in the heat of battle. Their slow-witted nature and placid acceptance of even the most suicidal of orders also fits well with the Krieg ethos. In stark contrast, Rattlings are reviled for their tendency towards insubordination, an alien concept to the soldiers of Krieg. Militarum Tempestus may also be attached to a company's headquarters staff, and their aid requested as and when required. Commissars. The Krieg regiment's zeal and commitment to the Imperial cause make their regiments the perfect place for prospective commissars to gain battlefield experience. Officio Prefectus cadets are commonly attached to Death Korps command units at company or platoon level, studying the arts of combat in the shadow of experienced officers and observing senior commissars in the field. In stark contrast to many other regimentos, where the commissar's primary duty is to enforce failing morale or punish cowardice, commissars embedded within the Death Korps often find themselves forced to rein in the self-sacrificial tendencies of Krieg officers. Example regiment. The Krieg 143rd Infantry Regiment. The regiments of Krieg are deployed across the length and breadth of the Imperium, engaging in brutal warfare against myriad foes on countless worlds. Even so, few have seen as much combat as the Krieg 143rd Infantry Regiment. If it were in the nature of Krieg regiments to count their victories, display honours or show pride, the regiment would surely boast of its record of battle. Many are the enemies of the Emperor who have been ground to dust beneath the boots of the 143rd, overwhelmed by the commitment and endurance of its soldiers. Yet its men have proven capable of winning battles by methods other than attritional warfare and a willingness to suffer. During Operation Spinebreak, an attempt to assassinate the Orc Big Mech Cogfist Steel Snapper, veteran elements of the regiment were formed into kill teams and trusted to use their guile, combat skill, and independence of thought to fight their way into the heart of the Orc fortress and complete their task. The 143rd have most recently been deployed to the war-ravaged hive world of Armageddon, there to form part of the newly raised Krieg 74th Line Corps, whose task will be to crush the heretical uprising raging in the vicinity of Hive Infernus and pacify the northern reaches of Armageddon Secundus. The defense of Corsis Magna. Of the many wars in which the Krieg 143rd Infantry Regiment has taken part, few have proven quite so horrific as the defense of Corsis Magna. An important military staging post and ammunition storage center at the outer edge of the Octaris sector, the planet Corsis Magna was caught in the path of war boss Git Krug's invasion fleet. Long prior to the Orcs' arrival, Death Korps forces had dug themselves in around the primary settlement, Madrigal. There they cleared dozens of miles of forest to establish layered defenses that included razor wire, minefields, and innumerable firing points, gun nests, and ferrocrete bunkers. Git Krug's invaders came crashing down from orbit to thunder into the forests north and east of Death Korps lines, infesting the dense woodland and launching repeated assaults. Each attack saw thousands of orcs felled by lasgun fire, blown to smithereens in minefields, or ensnared by razor wire and torn to shreds. So numerous were the orcs that the war boss's forces continued to press forward over gathering mounds of their own dead. Xenos aircraft darkened the sky day after day, their air raids pummeling the Death Korps, while the madcap blasts of orc artillery tore through bunkers and ripped soldiers asunder. Each time the orcs breached a trench line, the surviving Krieg soldiers fell back to another, luring their foes into yet more pre-prepared killing fields. Repeated counterattacks by the 143rd saw many such entrenched positions change hands multiple times. The arrival of winter rains saw the conflict descend into a true stalemate. Humans and orcs drowned in toxic mud, bloated corpses protruded from the mire or bobbed in shell craters, face down in pools of irradiated fluid. Even the belligerent orcs could make little progress in such inimical conditions. As the weeks passed, the coming of the dry season ushered in a period of festering rot, during which the stench of death and decay hung permanently in the fetid air. The 143rd weathered the misery, doggedly clinging to their positions as the Orcs' attacks continued month after month. In the end, no single devastating victory turned the tide of battle. The Orcs' resolve was instead broken, their desire for a proper fight frustrated by the sheer determination and discipline of the Krieg soldiery. For 6 annual cycles, the 143rd lived, fought and died amongst the slowly decaying corpses of their fallen, eventually earning a grinding victory that even the most biased of historiators would be hard-pressed to acclaim. Marshal Varnon Dreer. Amongst the most experienced of Krieg's officer corps, Lord Marshal Varnon Dreer embodies the fanaticism of the Death Korps. Despite the seniority of his rank, the Lord Marshal still goes to war astride ES 819, a faithful vat-born steed that has served him since he was a ride master in the Death Rider companies of the Krieg 143rd. Though dour of personality and harsh in his discipline, Dreer is unusual for a general of Krieg in that he has shown patience enough to fight alongside the command forces from other regimentos without questioning their dedication to the cause. That he bears decorations bestowed upon him by military commanders from Armageddon and Cadia, amongst others, speaks to the regard in which he is held within the upper echelons of the Astra Militarum. Much to the chagrin of his officio prefectus advisors, the Lord Marshal retains the self-sacrificial streak that runs through every Death Korps soldier. On many occasions he has fronted the wedge of a Death Rider cavalry charge, risking life and limb to inspire his soldiers to acts of heroism and martyrdom. He shall one day share the fate of most of Krieg's sons and daughters. Until then, he is resolved to crush the enemies of the Imperium. End quote. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. Like and subscribe and all the usual stuff, and do check out the video description for other channels and items of interest. But most importantly of all, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.